Hey everybody, I'm here with Angie Sadeghi, board certified gastroenterologist from Newport Beach, California. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
And so the reason I was so excited to get Angie Sadeghi is that in the vegan or ex-vegan trend or whatever, there's been a lot of people pointing to digestive problems. And so we're going to examine those a little bit. A lot of people, getting this fear of fiber and so forth. So we're going to unpack all of that. So thank you for being on the show so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I love your channel.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So let's just hop right into it. If you have someone coming to you who's like just straight up fiber challenged, what would you have them do? Like somebody's trying to be vegan and they're going like, I'm getting bloating, I'm getting these issues, like fiber doesn't work for me. I'm thinking of going straight up raw meat diet. What would you say?
Well, before I answer that question, let me tell you something. I'll tell you a little story about me. About 25 years ago, I jumped on the keto bandwagon. I was actually straight out Dr. Atkins' diet. I read the book. I was so motivated. I thought carbs make you fat. So I was about to get married and I wanted to look good and I wanted to be on a diet to lose weight. And I seriously actually tried the keto diet. So I'm not going to get into the details of how sick I got. However, I do want to tell you one thing. After several months of doing ketosis, where I eliminated, and by the way, I don't do anything half-assed. I jump into it and I go to the fullest, right? Which is a good and a bad thing. So when it came to that diet, I literally avoided anything that was carb. I went for fats and proteins, animal proteins and fats, and literally did it to the best of my potential, where I'd never had even a tiny bit of a tomato. So it fast forward like 6 to 8 months. One time I decided I'm not feeling well. This is gross. I'm eating chicken McNuggets and crazy things that are not good for me. I wasn't feeling well. So I thought I need to bring back some fruits and vegetables into my diet. So one day I decided to eat 3 pieces of broccoli. Literally 3 small pieces of broccoli. I went into the library because I was studying for an exam. The entire library could hear my gas gurgling sounds. And I literally had to leave the library because I was in a quiet room and people would turn around and look at me. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't even handle 3 pieces of broccoli. Now, fast forward to now. When I brag about my digestive system, it's not because I'm saying, oh, I'm exceptionally robust and I can digest anything. I'm just telling you because it can happen to anybody. At the present time, I could eat 2 cans of beans and about a huge bowl of broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables and not have bloating and gas. I will have a little bit because it's normal to have gas. You have fermentation by the gut microbiome. You have a little bit of gas, but big deal. It's not excessive. And even if I have a little gas, I don't have excessive bloating and distension where the gas can't come out. So flatulence is normal. And everybody has flatulence, but it's when it gets trapped for hours and people look pregnant, that's pathological. And that has not happened to me since I went vegan. So to let you know, I'm not exceptional. Anybody can go whole food plant-based without having any digestive issues, but at first it is hard. Your body has basically from all of the enzymes that come out of your pancreas and your stomach to digest food in entirety, there are about 17 enzymes that are there to digest food. So most of the digestion doesn't even occur because of our own endogenous enzymes. Most of the digestion occurs because of those little bugs that coexist with you in your body in a symbiotic relationship. The gut microbiome, we have about 100 trillion gut microbiome, mouth to anus. The majority of all the enzymes and the processing of food comes from those little guys. So you pretty much have very little control of it. So if you do not have a robust gut microbiome diversity and you have not been eating enough plants, you haven't fed these little guys for a while. So they're not as diverse as they should be. So the minute you eat a piece of fiber, your body is like, I don't know what to do with this. Now, the answer is not, well, just eliminate the fiber-rich foods because obviously I don't do very well with them. No, that's not what you want to do. Recent experts are coming out and say that you should have about 30 different species of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes in your diet per week. per week. And I got to tell you, like I'm a creature of habits, and I've been eating the same plant foods every day to make it easy. I even have to go out of my way to increase the diversity. And so the way to have gut microbiome diversity is by increasing the diversity of these fiber-rich foods, not by eliminating the fiber out of your diet. So if you're listening to this and you're going, oh, I want to be just like Dr. Angie, I want to be able to eat all kinds of plants and not have a lot of problems, great. Let me teach you how you do it. You may not be able to jump into it head first. Look, every baby has to crawl first before they walk, before they run. Okay, so it's not easy. Your digestive tract is the same thing. You know, if you saw me 10 years ago when I hit the gym, tried to lift weights, I looked awful. I looked crazy. My form was off. I didn't know what I was doing. I looked like an amateur. Now I can go into the gym. I can stimulate all my muscles. I can lift weights, and it's easy, right? But again, all of that practice makes perfect. And people understand that in sports. People understand that in other realms of the world, how things have to be progressively improved. But one thing people don't understand is in regards to digestion, they think they can have whatever they want for months and years and then switch their diet overnight, and their diet and their digestive tract should be able to accommodate that. It's not that way. You've got to ease into it. So I ask my patients, as much as I want to reverse their diabetes and hypercholesterolemia, and as much as I want them to lose weight and lower the risk of colon cancer and jump into a whole food plant-based diet, I tell them, you're not going to be able to. Let's do this slowly. I'm lucky to have two amazing dietitians working with me, so they help patients. I give them the recipe to good digestive health, and then I send them to my dietitians. And what my dietitians do, they ramp up the fiber slowly by about 2 to 3 grams per week, maybe 5 grams. But you can't put a number on it, Mike, because everybody is different. You know, if you were like me, the extreme of poor digestive health, and couldn't even have 3 broccolis, you may want to have 1 broccoli this week and then another extra broccoli mixer. So I literally tell my patients, if you can't handle beans, there's a problem. Maybe week 1, have 1 spoon of black beans, 1 tablespoon. The next day, have 2. See how that works. If you can't handle that, go back to 1 spoon. But the point is, everybody's different, and ramping up the fiber slowly is key to avoiding excessive bloating, gas, and abdominal discomfort.
So it sounds like there's just a different sort of time frame and fiber amount than people are expecting. So people think, oh, I'm going straight from standard American diet to eating like a whole food vegan diet. And especially when they're just like, oh, brown rice is the grain that I'm going to eat, and so forth, and then they just pound it down. They go from like 15 grams to like 60 grams in like 3 days.
Yes.
And so you're just proposing, like, look, we need to work with your body. We need to work with these billions of microbes that you have and make the shift slower and more calculated, and that way you won't fail, hopefully. All right, once again, this video is sponsored by Thrive Market, that online marketplace where you can just type in vegan and see all the vegan foods. You can ramp up your fiber strategically by ordering some foods there for a really great deal. And of course, you can click my link below to get that first month free and 25% off your first order, which is awesome. Once you order food on there, it will be shipped to your door, and they have a whole zero waste thing going on and offset all of their carbon, which is awesome. Final point, for every membership that's purchased, they will give a membership to somebody who's in need. And a quick note about sponsored videos, which I do very rarely. In this case, they very much help me do all those things I want to do. Like, this helped me go to LA and, do the LA Veg Fest, go to the Animal Sanctuary, go to the Vigil, and so forth. I guess I have 2 questions here. One would be, is there a different type of fiber sort of mix that you want to have? Like, I imagine if you just go brown rice, again, that example, that you're going to have super bloating, but is there a way you can kind of get up to a higher total grams of fiber and eat more whole foods without that? Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good question. First of all, there are different types of fiber, and they all they're digested differently in your body, and the location of the gut where they're digested, it can vary. Some are digested earlier on in the gut. Some are digested later on, farther down in the gut. But the bottom line is, there are certain foods that are not digested as readily or easily as other types. For example, cooked foods are handled easier than raw foods. Like, I have patients who tell me, like, they eat raw vegetables and it comes out the other way, exactly the same way. and they cannot even handle raw foods. So raw foods tend to be very difficult to digest. So when someone's transitioning into a whole food plant-based diet, what I recommend is root vegetables. Cooked root vegetables are much easier to digest, like potatoes and carrots and beets and other root vegetables. When you cook them, they're much easier to digest. Then once they graduate, then they start eating grains, but they start eating white rice instead of brown rice. Slowly, then they can have brown rice. Slowly, they can bring the grains. Always organic grains. And of course, then week 3 or 4, I bring beans in. And the last thing I bring in is raw nuts and raw vegetables. Raw vegetables have a lot of macronutrients that are literally the entire digestion of these macronutrients is based on your gut microbiome. They have oxalates, lectins, they have salicylates, histamines, and basically the role of these macronutrients is still being studied. We think that a little bit of lectins is important in your body because they're anti-cancer, and so basically they could be actually some pharmaceutical companies use them to make chemotherapy drugs. So some of these, which by the way, I want to tell you one thing. A lot of the non-vegans who are anti-eating vegetables, which makes no sense, they demonize these micronutrients as a bad thing. Listen, we don't know the properties exactly why they're there, but it doesn't mean they're bad. They could be anti-cancer. We're still studying the role of these micronutrients, but nevertheless, it is more difficult to digest if you don't have a fit, quote-unquote, fit gut microbiome, or you don't have a diverse gut microbiome that has all these different types of basically gut organisms that can handle the digestion of these macronutrients. So for now, if you cook these vegetables, all of those micronutrients like the lectins, the oxalates, the salicylates, those are eliminated. So it's so much easier for your gut to handle them. So then what you do is at the very last, you start the raw vegetables and slowly ramp those up. So I guess to go back to answering your question, cooked vegetables first, then you start slowly bringing in organic grains, then legumes, then lastly raw vegetables.
An idea for an app, like ramp up your fiber, like the fiber app, where it shows like the really easy ones, and you track what you eat and you track your reaction, and you go, okay, I've tried one serving of yams and that worked, and so I'm going to keep doing that, and then over time hopefully it could work. So somebody out there, make that app. Thank you. You can give me credit for the idea.
You're amazing. You're giving me, I'm writing this down.
Good.
I actually have a website called www.yourgutconnection.com, and it helps people with SIBO and people who can't handle fiber, and it's a 6-week course, and people go through it week by week to ramp up their fiber. Some people, it's really interesting how it's worked. I mean, I didn't know how it's going to work, but we have people who stayed in week 1 for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And some people stayed in week 1, then went to week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, and boom, they finished and they're good. And some people have stayed in week 1 3 times, week 2 3 times. So it's so variable. It's not a cookie cutter thing. Everybody's different.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And so I have to bring it up. I know like almost everybody is so done with it. But what about these people who are like long-term vegans and they quit because they got digestive problems like 5 or 6 years in after eating, these whole foods and stuff. Well, various diets, but sometimes whole foods. So do you have any take on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, think about how many millions of people are eating a whole food plant-based diet and they're doing well, and 3 people come out and they claim that their entire problems was due to eating a whole food plant-based diet. And we shouldn't think that eating a whole food plant-based diet is terrible just because one person didn't have a good experience with it. But invariably, when you dig into these people's history, you realize they've had some kind of an eating disorder or some kind of a problem where they were taking all kinds of medicines. Maybe they had travelers diarrhea at one time, and they have post-infectious irritable bowel syndrome because of it. Some have, I don't know, they're taking alkaline water. There's, all kinds of stuff where you just, when they come out and tell you, I have SIBO because of the whole food plant-based diet, I don't know about you, but I'm like, don't say that because it's not true and it's going to deter a lot of people who are trying to eat healthy. So when you dig into their history, they don't come out and tell you exactly what they had been through before that point. But I do. I have the privilege of sitting with patients and digging into their history and their medical problems from the past until the present. And I always find out that the reason they have SIBO was not because they were vegan. Experience, well, I mean, this is published, but in my clinic, it's dysmotility, which means a slow-moving small bowel and a slow-moving colon. So a lot of these people have very bad constipation. They have a lot of hormonal dysregulations, and they have hypothyroidism, and the motor complexes of their colon or their small bowel doesn't work, so it's a slow-moving bowel, and they get SIBO, and they blame it on veganism. Okay. Come on, people. People with celiac disease, up to 60% of people with celiac disease have SIBO. Almost everybody with irritable bowel syndrome has SIBO. Almost everybody with Crohn's disease has SIBO. So when you diabetes, 60% of, if you ask Robbie and Cyrus from, they have this in
diabetes.
Mastering diabetes, they'll tell you their patients have SIBO. So there are so many causes of SIBO. I mean, I can go on and on. I'm not going to bore your listeners with that. But to come out and say I went vegan and I had SIBO is absurd, and it's wrong, and it shouldn't be happening, because unfortunately, since it's totally it's a fallacy, and it's basically, I don't know if it's an old wives' tale or just a made up something new, whatever you want to call it, it's deterring people from adopting a healthy diet, or even if they are on a healthy diet, they're leaving their healthy diet, and it shouldn't be happening. So I encourage people who have listened to some of these influencers over the years, who are not doctors, they're not even healthcare providers, they're coming out and saying, my practitioner asked me to eat fish and eggs. I want them to listen to someone like me, board certified gastroenterologist, or you are very scientific. Everything you do, you're always coding evidence-based. I want them to dig into some of the real literature to find the real truth, because I mean, let me ask you this, Mike. A lot of these practitioners are asking their patients to eat fish and eggs. I mean, do you know? I mean, how frustrating is that? What in fish and eggs helps your SIBO? Nothing.
That's what they say. It's what's not in the food that helps.
So number one, if you're listening and you have SIBO, one has to get into the underlying cause of SIBO. Otherwise, it's going to happen again. You can eat steak, fish, eggs. I don't care what you eat. You can eat plant foods. It's going to come back, because as long as the underlying cause of SIBO is not addressed, you're Band-Aid treating everything. So go to someone who's an expert in gastroenterology and expert in SIBO, because a lot of gastroenterologists don't even know how to treat SIBO. It's sort of a specialty. You have to know functional disorders of the GI tract to be able to treat patients. So if it's hypothyroidism, your hypothyroidism has to be fixed. If it's constipation, your constipation has to be fixed. If it's diabetes, your sugar has to be under control. If it's a celiac disease, you've got to go on a gluten-free diet. If it's IBD, your IBD has to be treated, so on and so forth. But the underlying cause has to be addressed. And then once the underlying cause is addressed, then there are herbal medicines or medications. There are antibiotics. They are not perfect. However, there are some modalities available to kill the overgrowth in the small intestine, because most of these bugs that live within your gut have to be in the colon. When there is an overgrowth in the small bowel, that's where you get a lot of bloating and gas, because there's too many bacteria in the small bowel, and there's overproduction of all the gases like hydrogen gas, methane gas. And so that causes bloating. So when you use these antibiotics and herbals, they kind of get rid of the overgrowth, and they help you have less bloating and gas.
Have you tried doing the enteric-coated peppermint oil with anybody? Has that worked? Or
peppermint oil works. Oregano oil works. A lot of these, there's actually a company called Metagenics. They have a good product called Candibactin. I use that a lot. It's all just natural products. There are different ones out there. And I've used them, and they work very well for hydrogen producing SIBO. So there are different types of SIBO. There's SIBO where there's predominantly hydrogen producing bacteria, and that is very easy to kill. You can kill it with antibiotics like rifaximin. You can kill it with these concentrated oils, natural herbal medicines. But then there's the methane producing bacteria. So they're called archaea. They're not even bacteria. So there's viruses that live there, fungus that lives there. There is bacteria and archaea. That's the fourth group. And so they don't work with natural. They don't get killed with these products that we have on the market currently. They don't even get killed with antibiotics because they're methane. They're archaea. They're not bacteria. So we don't really have a really good way of killing these guys. So for those types of patients, historically, doctors have used a combination of two strong antibiotics, including rifaximin and neomycin. I hate neomycin because it could have autotoxicity and other problems. So for them, I just basically, unfortunately, have to just tell them, look, you may suffer for a few weeks, but let me get rid of the underlying cause of your SIBO, and hopefully you'll be better where we don't need to use the antibiotics. So everybody's different, the way we need to treat them. But so the hydrogen-producing overgrowth, the way people have that, they have mostly diarrhea. Okay, but people with SIBO who have predominantly constipation, they usually have the methane-producing archaea type overgrowth. They're very difficult to treat, and unless you treat their constipation and improve their motility, they're not going to get better.
So I had another one. We basically sort of talked about Ravana without mentioning Ravana, but there's one thing since my video. Lily Koi Hawaii also did a video on Ravana and mentioned that she has like 5 or 6 videos on colonics, which is where you're pumping water into your butt. Things are going up the wrong way, and SIBO is having that colonic bacteria make it into the small intestine. So if you have anything to say about that, I'm very interested.
Yes. Oh my gosh, where do I begin with the colonics? Oh wow, it's been around for centuries. And I mean, I can understand 300 years ago when they didn't know how to treat constipation, they would use colonics to get rid of the impaction. And even to this day, Mike, when I have certain patients from the nursing home, elderly, when they come in and they have a big ball of stool impacted, I literally have to put my hand in there, break out the poop, bring it out, and give them enemas to get it out.
Props to you for doing that.
In cases, by the way, a lot of children have this problem. I talk to my gastroenterology friends who are pediatric gastroenterologists. They literally have to do this to poor kids who are on the standard American diet. They're not getting enough fiber.
Wow. Standard American diet equals poop balls.
Poop balls, people, poop balls. It's not pretty. Someone has to stick their hands in your butt to bring out this poop ball. But anyway, so I would use enemas in extreme cases like that where I'm between a rock and a hard place. The alternative would be to cut out their colon. I don't want to do that. So, but let's just talk about the general population. The colon is supposed to be dirty. Okay, there are 100 trillion gut microbiome living in your gut, mouth to anus. But 90% of this bacteria is supposed to be in your colon. The colon is supposed to be the dirtiest surface ever. Even if you just scratch the surface on the ground, the dirtiest place you could find, your colon is dirtier than that. But that's how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be a diverse type of bacteria, all kinds of different bacteria living there. Why would you want to go clean out your colon and disturb that gut microbiome balance? Even when I do colonoscopies, Mike, I worry about screwing up the gut microbiome balance. Even with colonoscopy, you basically eliminate a lot of the gut microbiome. But that's necessary because we're looking for cancers and we kind of don't have a choice. But I hear people get colonics on a weekly basis instead of eating fiber. Hello, you know what? Here's a natural way. Eat your fiber every day, have a robust, healthy gut, or go get colonics every day. It makes no sense. Now, I do want to tell you, now, a lot of vegans are going to be like, I ate 80 grams of fiber and I'm still constipated enough to get colonics. I get it. You probably have another problem. It's not called eating a lot of fiber. It's called dysmotility. Get your dysmotility looked at. Talk to your doctor, get your thyroid checked, and make sure you talk to somebody who has expertise in hormone replacement therapy. A lot of straight out endocrinologists will tell you, oh, a free T3 of 2.3 is fine, even though you're constipated, can't poop, I need colonics. No, it's not. You have to optimize the hormones. If you have problems, I can help you. But going back to the colonics, it destroys the gut microbiome balance. It should be avoided. In rare cases, it could cause perforations, which is an accidental tear in the colon. If someone has a diverticula, which is a pocket inside the colon, you flush something up there, it could perforate. It starts in basically causing dependence issues where people can't go on their own anymore, and it could perhaps be screwing up with the neurological system, the natural peristaltic actions of the colon, which is supposed to push things from up down. Instead, you're pushing things up, and it could screw up with the neurologicals. That's why a lot of these people have dependence on getting a colonic. So it's if you have never started getting them, please don't start. If you're getting them because you can't have a healthy bowel movement despite going plant-based, go see somebody to figure out why.
And I would say, it's this sort of, in my opinion, misguided quest for a level of purity that you just don't need, whether it's not eating at all for a really long time, even though you don't have some health issue, or literally trying to cleanse something that's supposed to be diverse.
Yes. They've done studies where they had people do colonoscopies, and they went in there. They were actually testing whether probiotics work or not. And so this amazing group in Israel did this study where they went up into the colon and they took biopsies of patients. These patients volunteered to have colonoscopies while going through this data collection and this study. And when they did the colonoscopies, they saw that a certain amount of bacteria was eradicated, and they gave one group probiotics, the other group didn't get probiotics. They realized that the group that got probiotics after colonoscopy actually did not do well, because they went back and biopsied their colons. They realized that the population that got probiotics actually had a harder time re-inoculating the gut microbiome with the original microbiome. So it showed that probiotics actually did harm, not good. So the group that didn't get probiotics did better. So anytime you cleanse the gut like that, even if you try to take probiotics, it's not gonna help, and you're not gonna re-inoculate very well.
So let me sum that up. So of people that got literally water up their butt.
Yeah, so these people didn't have colonics. These people had aggressive cleansing, so they drank this fluid to clean out their gut to get in preparation for a colonoscopy. So the one group got probiotics after the cleansing, and the other group didn't get probiotics after the cleansing. Then they went and did colonoscopies to see, and they actually took the tissue to see what happened to the gut microbiome for the people who didn't get the probiotics and the people who did get the probiotics. And the group who got the probiotics actually had a harder time re-inoculating their gut with the bacteria. So it was harmful to take probiotics. But
how diverse were those probiotics? Was it like a lot of strains? I mean, I guess that could be maybe an issue. Like if you have a really diverse probiotic that you're taking versus a couple strains, maybe that.
I don't know exactly which ones they used. I'll have to get back to you on that. Mm-hmm. But the point of this study was probiotics are not as helpful as people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned that before.
Yeah, it's like people think that it's the magic thing. I can eat whatever I want and then take probiotics. Oftentimes you poop them out. It doesn't get incorporated in the mucosa. So even in the old studies, they used to study the stool of people who took probiotics, and they said, see, they're not getting killed. They're still there. So if you study the stool, it doesn't equal to actually incorporation of these biome inside the colonic wall. That's two different things. And now that we're doing the studies more intelligently, where we're designing these studies where we actually study the mucosa of the gut, we are realizing that they're not getting inoculated. And basically, they don't go in there, and it's not like teamwork with the existing bacteria and the probiotics that you're taking. Oh, everybody's having a party and they're coexisting together. It's not happening like we thought.
I bet, especially if you're eating the standard American diet, right? You're not giving them the food they need to establish themselves, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we have studies that came from San Francisco, and what they did is they gave people the standard American diet, and they saw that the population of the harmful bilophilic gut microbiome increased instantaneously, where you basically give them the saturated fat, and these harmful gut microbiome increase in population overnight. And as you starve the fiber-loving gut microbiome, that population goes down. And unfortunately, if you starve them long enough, these gut microbiome will start eating away at the protective mucus layer of the gut. Okay.
So what is normally probiotic becomes dangerous when they don't have
That's
anything to
exactly
eat.
right. These bacteria are fiber, they thrive on fiber. So if you starve your inner gut microbiome that likes fiber, if you starve them, they start eating the mucus layer. Was an amazing study that came out of in Nature, and I made a post about it if you go a while back. I think that was
On Facebook?
it's on
Or
Instagram. It was an awesome study, and I was just like, oh my god. I mean, it was like one of those wow moments that I had, that these fiber loving bacteria will in turn start eating away at the mucus layer of the gut because they're not being fed. So once that mucus layer goes out, the next step is what? You're still eating all the saturated fat. The tight junctions between the enterocytes, between the colonic cells get damaged. Once those enterocytes are basically, the tight junctions are gone, then your gut becomes leaky in layman terms, or you have increased the gut permeability. Gut mucosa permeability increases, or it becomes leaky, and then all these bacteria and pathogenic stuff can just flow into your blood.
Or just proteins, like animal proteins, and then cross-react, in
Absolutely.
terms of your immune system and autoimmune diseases and stuff.
That's exactly right. That's exactly.
It's a lot of problems, so don't stop eating your fiber. Eat all of your fiber. Any last thoughts, you think?
Yes, I think my last message is eat a lot of fiber. Make sure you include about 30 different species of fiber-rich foods, different colors, different types per week. 30 different ones, and that's how you get a robust, healthy gut microbiome. And lastly, thank you so much for having me on your show. I love your work and I love what you're doing. You're helping so many people. It was an honor being on your show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And I apologize, I've had a little bit of an internet issue. I really hope it doesn't come through. I think I'm on like Wi-Fi when I should be on a solid connection, and so it can be a little funky. So hopefully that works out super well. And a quick reminder, I have that link below to get that first month of Thrive for free. $3.00. Thank you, Thrive. And thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Check out Angie Sadeghi on Instagram, and I'll link below that program she has for ramping up your fiber. And I'll see you in the next video. Boom. All right. Cool.